if you're a topwater freak like myself during bass fishing season, you're going to be extremely familiar with the Whopper Plopper. The Whopper Plopper is one of the most easiest topwater lures you can use. My daughter, 11-year-old daughter, can cast and catch fish with the Whopper Plopper. But there is a few things I'm going to talk to you guys about that are going to help you hook up more often and get more catches on the Whopper Plopper. Now, it may seem strange because it seems like every time we throw this thing, we're catching fish. But if you're like me, you have a lot of fish swipe at it and miss it. You have a lot of fish hook up and then come unhooked. A few things we're going to talk about to help you put more fish in the boat with the Whopper Plopper. Now let's start with number one, and this is probably the most important one, is the hooks. Now, the Whopper Plopper comes with these right here are standard issue hooks. Very solid, very stout hooks. What I'm going to suggest to you guys, and one thing I did, is I changed the hooks out. Now, I only changed the reverse one on this just to show you the difference. If you look at the front one here, that's your standard issue Whopper Plopper hook. If you look at the one on the rear, that's going to be your finesse extra wide gap treble hook. Why the extra wide gap? Well, just like any other reason you would use an extra wide gap hook, it helps with hooking the fish up, sticking them and keeping them hooked up. Now, one thing about this is you're going to want to use the finesse style. It's a lighter style hook. The reason I like that is it helps keep the bait buoyant. I use the number 4 Gamakatsu EWG finesse treble hooks. So that's it right there. As you can see, I'll give you one more look. You're going to want to change out that back hook and your front hook. I just left the front hook for purposes of the video to show you the difference. Now you may be asking yourself, well, it looks like the hook hangs up on the propeller. Well, here's your standard issue hook up to the propeller, and you got the same amount of distance between the tail propeller on that as you do on the extra wide gap. Slightly bigger of a hook, wider gaps, more hookups, more fish landed. So for tip number 2, what we're going to need is you're either going to have to take yourself to a drugstore or a beauty salon store, something like that, and get yourself some bright red nail polish or dark red. Okay, I just went up and rifled through my wife's fingernail polish, found one she really doesn't use a lot, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a few marks on this bait. Now, why red? Well, number 1, bass see red extremely well. So here's your original. All we're going to do is just put a little bit on here, right? Put a little bit there. We're going to put a little dash where the gills are, because what color are fish gills? Fish gills are red. Okay, and fish are looking at this bait from underneath of it. So you want to add a little bit of color for them that they can relate to as far as a wounded fish, because that's what this is imitating, is kind of a wounded fish skating across the top of the water. Now, my painting skills have never been that great, even as a child growing up. Never been a great painter. But I'm going to show you guys just a few things you can do. Now, you don't have to do, you can do it with any Whopper Plopper. I'm doing it with the bone because this is my favorite. It's just one of them baits that I throw frequently. Okay, so what I've done so far is right there. Now you got to imagine this bait, we're actually going to put a little more on the nose. This bait is on top of the water, and the fish are, you're drawing that fish up to strike it. You're trying to draw their attention up to get that strike. Now, if a fish sees something like that, blood red, coming from up underneath, it's going to assume already that it's a wounded bait fish, and then it's going to see that blood red, and odds are it's going to trigger its interest even more. Plus, with the red paint, it gives it a better target. When this thing's cutting across the water, just doing its thing, and you're retrieving it, the issue with it is it's leaving a propeller, prop behind it, and fish can tend to miss it. I've had fish basically come up and hit this thing with their mouth closed and send it 6 feet in the air and not hook up. I can tell you that doesn't happen anymore. Number one, with those extra wide gap hooks, if their face gets anywhere near that thing, we're hooking up. The other spot you can add a little bit of paint to, we're going to do that right now, is the tail. This one already has a little bit of red on it, but it's pretty worn. What we're going to do is just add a little bit of paint to the tail to make that pop a little more. As you can see, I mean, it's going to basically look like a fish trailing blood as it's coming through the water. Again, you can do this with any Whopper Plopper you got. So here I got another one. Here's another one of my favorites. This is the bluegill. I'm not going to paint this one just yet because I'm going to share with you my next tip on the Whopper Plopper on how to change the sound. So let's get into that one. Compared to the Berkeley Chapo, the Whopper Plopper has a very flexible tail. You can't do that with a Berkeley Chapo. I'm trying to look here to see if I got one close by, and it's not looking like it. Oh yes, I do. So here's a Berkeley Chapo. That tail is hard plastic. There is no bending that. I mean, that is as rigid as it gets. With the Whopper Plopper, what you can do is you can adjust that tail a little bit. Okay, so you may have to do this in between casts or cast it a few times and then make an adjustment, but you can bend that baby back and not make it as loud. You can cup it even more to make it a little more loud. But the thing of it is, topwater doesn't always work. Even though it may be topwater season, topwater doesn't always work for us. And sometimes it's a little too aggressive. Sometimes it's not aggressive enough. One thing you can do is just make that tail how you want it, a little more pliable, and just make an adjustment, toss it off the side of the boat, pull it across the water, see if that's something, the sound you're looking for. But to just make a subtle adjustment on the sound compared with the paint touch-ups on the bait, you're going to get more hookups. I guarantee you guys. If you're not doing this already, you need to try that. And for my final hack, what we're going to talk about is the fishing line. A lot of people get it confused. I'm a huge braid to leader fisherman. I pretty much do that on everything. But what you need for your topwater is straight braid. The fish can't see the line. What they're looking at is this bait coming through the water, making all that ruckus. They don't care what brand fishing line you're using, what color, what size. What you need to do, though, is ensure you're using braid because braid floats. Anything you can do to help keep this bait on top of the water column where it needs to be to trigger them bites is what you need to be doing. So go straight braid with your Whopper Ploppers. Go straight braid really with all your topwater, even your poppers. I always throw straight braid. It helps keep that bait on top of the water. I personally use 65-pound braid. I have one rod that I use for topwater, whether it's frogging, whether it's Whopper Plopper, and whether it's wake bait. I use straight 65-pound braid because you're able to cast that stuff a long ways, and it's durable enough if you're frogging to be able to set the hook and yank that fish out of that cover, that slop, them lily pads, stuff like that. Get them up, get them out of there, get them to the boat. So once again, guys, if you're not doing these little things to your Whopper Plopper, go ahead and give it a try. Let me know how it works out for you. Come back to the video. If you're going to try these, come back to the video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, if it worked out for you. If you're not throwing straight braid yet, you need to start throwing straight braid on your topwater lures. And you're going to have more success as far as the action of the lure and the hookups for the fish. So thank you guys again for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the little bell notification. That way you're notified every time I upload a new video like this. And if you're interested in more tips and tricks videos, I just uploaded one about the Yamatanuki. And I'm going to leave that for you right here. Go ahead and give that video a watch. Let me know what you guys think about those tips for that lure. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next one.